Walk with me. Heartfelt leadership. That's something that's been on my mind lately. Mainly because we're coming off another amazing event with our community. Was out in Louisville the other week with a smaller group, about 150 or so of our highest level leaders in a workshop style experience. And that seemed to be kind of the reoccurring theme, feeling, a word that wasn't used that much directly, but if I were to kind of look back and summarize kind of the immersive couple days, heartfelt leadership. So many amazing sections and speakers, but my personal favorite had to be Shetty, someone who I've had the privilege of actually knowing for quite a few years now. Got introduced through a mutual friend, Lewis House, quite a few years back, and I've had a chance to build more of a personal relationship, social relationship. We're both here in Los Angeles and have watched his just amazing ascent in, you can call it the mental health arena, the thought leadership space, business, and just respect the hell, not only of his business rise, but more importantly, his character, like who he is just as a person. And I've listened to his content for years. I've had a chance to spend some time with him personally, but this was the first time we had a chance to do an event together. And it was just amazing to see him deliver such a heartfelt, open, sincere message full of just personal stories and experience to our community. A gift and a treat. The week prior, he was in front of 60,000 people in Central Park, and then here he is with our community, just what felt like a handful of us in a room. And I want to carry that message forward, that heartfelt leadership theme, and just share a couple things that I took away from Jay directly, and as always, some of my own perspective around that inspiration that I think we all can apply, no matter who we are, the path we're on each of our journey to our own meant to. I think this is something we all need and can incorporate in our own pursuit of better. Before we get into the topic, I'm going to ask, who's by my side? Come on, who's to my left? Who's to my right? Say hello below. Don't be shy. Welcome back. If you've been walking with us, I see you. I love our time together. If you're new to the crew, maybe someone shared this with you. Maybe you got tagged below. Welcome. We walk together live most weeks around this time, sharing just inspired thoughts. Just flow of whatever is kind of on my mind or my heart, and sharing perspective to collaborate. And I invite and encourage participation. Just share anything that resonates, ideas, perspective. I read all of them. That adds value to us. And you can catch them here on the platforms, but also a whole amazing archive of past conversations on the podcast. Just search Alive by Design or my name, all the podcast places. Side note, if you have been following for a while, maybe take a second right after this and drop by the podcast and go leave a rating and review on an episode. That just helps the podcast get in front of more ears, make a bigger impact, and I really appreciate that. So heartfelt leadership. Kind of an interesting term. I've studied leadership for, decades now. It's crazy to see. And I don't think I've ever really heard the term heartfelt leadership, at least in a way probably it should be. And I'm going to take a crack at defining it. This isn't something that was said in the room, but it's notes that I wrote down as I was taking in and listening to Jay and the rest of the speakers. And I think we all have to learn to love and lead. And when I say love and lead, three things come to mind. I think we have to learn to love and lead ourselves first. You see, in order to effectively lead others, we must first learn to lead ourselves. And I think that word love in front of lead is really important today, more than ever, coming off of what we have all been through, overcoming what we've all overcome. I think right now, more than ever before, we need to learn to love ourselves. We need to learn to lead ourselves. I think there's another layer. Again, wasn't said in the room, but something I wrote down just from kind of a moment of inspiration. I think after we learn to love and lead ourselves, we have to learn to love and lead our family. And that word family might mean different things to all of us, depending on what season of life you're in right now. But we all have a group of individuals that we associate that word to, right? Family, whether it be by blood or by love. And sometimes we forget that our own family needs love and leadership. And the last layer you probably can guess, for loving and leading ourselves, for loving and leading our family, we can evolve to loving and leading others. So when I talk about heartfelt leadership and kind of creating a definition around a new term for me it's learning to love and lead ourselves, our family, and others. And was able to get through some awesome tools from Jay that kind of fit into those categories. I just want to share them with you. I probably won't do as good of a job as he did, but I'll give you the summary and enough value that hopefully you can kind of grasp it and make it your own, apply it. That's the point of these conversations. And one of the first things he gave was kind of a personal formula for vetting opportunity. A personal formula, a personal system, a personal filter for determining where his time or energy goes. And it was an acronym, super easy to remember. E.S.M. E.S.M. E standing, and I love this, for energy. Take a seat here on our rock together. And I love that it's first, right? It's something we all know. We've talked a lot about energy, especially this year. Energy was and is actually my word, my theme, my intention for the year. I've been wearing a bracelet most of the year that says energy on it. It's the word that I've been gravitating to. It's a word that has energy for me. So I loved when he said that his system, his filter starts with energy. When vetting an opportunity, when vetting a project, when vetting a decision, when vetting a new direction, when vetting a new relationship, when vetting anything that comes into your life that could potentially, right, direct focus and attention and time, we got to ask ourselves does the energy feel right? Does the frequency feel right? I know it's a weird one because it gets to the corner of something that's not like tangible, but it is something that we can real. We all have relationships that we meet, people that we meet and we just vibe with, like the energy flows, like they're individuals that feed us or give us, right, or generate energy, right, toward us. And we also have relationships and individuals that are the opposite effect, right? It's like the more time we spend, the more drained that we feel. Energy gets taken away. We get deflated. I think you can literally divide every relationship or interaction we have with people and in one category or the other. It's either something that gives you energy or it's something that takes energy. And that's something, guys, that we all have the barometer, right? We all have that internal measuring stick. We all have, right, that thermometer that tells us, right, are we getting filled up or are we getting depleted? You know, I often read my son a book when he goes to bed at night. We read books most nights, but one book that constantly has a rotation is the book about filling your bucket. And I know all parents in the room know the book, Filling Up Your Bucket. But that's the concept, right? We all have people that fill our bucket, or we all have people that take things out of our bucket. But I love the fact that was put as like a filter And for me, that's something that I've always felt, but if I were to be brutally honest, sometimes I ignore, sometimes I suppress, sometimes my head, right, in terms of, believing the best intent, wanting to give people benefit of doubt, wanting to give people second, third, and fourth chances, right? Talking to myself why it makes sense on paper, rationalizing certain things. Sometimes my head talks me into going a direction or staying a direction longer than my heart is telling me to do so based on the energy. So I love that litmus test from the very beginning when measuring a direction. Where does this stack up in terms of just the energy, the way that it feels, the frequency or vibe that it gives you? You remember the second letter? So I said E, second one was S. So after energy comes strategy, right? There has to be an element of strategy, right, in a decision. Now, right, energy has nothing to do with past-based reference. You got to let go of the past. You got to let go of, what was. You got to let go of, the stress or anxiety or anticipation of what could be. You just got to feel in the moment of how it feels. But when you get to strategy, strategy, you need context, right? Strategy, you got to be smart about, okay, what has come before, what could come ahead, where does this fit in your overall path to whatever you're meant to is, right? Strategic insight is important. You guys, we live in a time where there's so much opportunity, right? We get hit so many times a day. We got a million things a moment, right, trying to grab our attention. We need to be strategic in our own life of the people we put our time into, the projects we put in time into, the opportunities we put our time into, that is it helping the trajectory of where you want to go, right? Of your own journey to what you're meant to do. So strategy is important, right? We gotta vet that as part of the filter. And then lastly, I said E, S, and then M. Want to take a guess what M was? Lastly was money. M was money. Said it has to make sense financially, right? It has to make sense on a value exchange. It's interesting. If you caught the podcast I recently shared, was the first guest on my mentor and longtime friend Eliyahu Gion's first podcast, Mana from Heaven. And the topic he chose to interview myself and Ryan on was a topic about spirituality and money. And so often we get stuck in feeling that some reason that money is not spiritual. And I love what Jay said in the room. He echoed what I've heard from my friend and mentor Eliyahu, that money is one of the most spiritual exchanges in the world. It is one of the most heart-centered exchanges in the world. Like when you value something and someone so much that you're willing to exchange money for their time or their expertise or their service, right? Or something they created, like that is a heartfelt exchange of money. And when money is not exchanged at the same level of value, right? That's something that can hurt a relationship, that can build a resentment, that can get in a way of a heart-centered approach. So the money has to make sense. And so often in this world where we get these negative beliefs that money is a bad thing or money is not a spiritual thing. And I loved hearing it from Jay, who's really a thought leader and a spiritual background, that it's one of his 3 filters, E.S.M. So I love that. I'm gonna take that formula as my own. I'm sharing that with all of you because it's an easy one to remember. And you might have something in your life right now that you're trying to vet, either doing or not doing, or maybe you're vetting, putting more energy or time into or less. And you might use that for yourself. Where does the energy measure up? How does that feel? Where does the strategy measure up in terms of your personal goals, right, and desires, right? And where does the money measure up when it comes to a value exchange? And don't misunderstand me, especially for those of you in the entrepreneurial route, that sometimes the money takes time, right? Especially in business. It's not an instant exchange, but the potential of that income building has to be there, has to be possible. Don't get stuck in the instant gratification, right? Because nothing that is substantial long-term happens instantly, but the potential of it building must be there and be fair. So I love that. And it's something when it comes to like a heart-centered leadership, loving yourself, right? Leading yourself. That's a great way to simply measure where our time and the direction, right, that we put our energy goes. He also talked about how loving yourself has to start with respecting yourself. You can't love yourself without respecting yourself. And I'd never made that that association, that bridge, that connection, that we have to respect ourselves in order to love and lead ourselves. And he referenced a book that I can't remember if I've listened to all of it. I know I'm going to do it again now that it's top of mind. The book was called Flow. And he drew a grid or a scale on a whiteboard in front of the room that really showed two things: challenges and skill. And the bottom line of the exercise was really showing that we have to have a high and equal amount of challenges and skill in order to respect ourselves and grow. See, we get in situations where if our challenges outweigh our skill, we get frustrated, right? We get burned out. We start to ask ourselves why. We get stuck in a situation that doesn't serve us. And vice versa, if our skill is so much higher than our challenges that we're in right now, right? We get bored, right? We get apathetic, we get lethargic, we get stuck. And in life, the game of life is to constantly elevate the challenges that we're facing so we can elevate the skill that we have. And they got to be on par. We got to have great challenges so we can build great skill. And to have both great challenges and great skill is a blessing. It's a gift. Because what that does is it not only allows us to grow and allows us to get better and allows us to learn, it allows us to respect ourselves for the progress that we're making. And that was a big shift for me. And if you were to assess right now the challenges that you're going through and the skill that it required, where would that fall? Are your challenges greater than your skill, or is your skill greater than your current challenges? Do we need to build more skill, or do we need to find greater challenges to build our self-respect, to love ourselves, to lead ourselves? There were a bunch of different, take-homes. But one last one I'll share had a chance to have kind of a personal question with Jay, something that just was on my mind and my heart. And I'll give you context to my question, because it wasn't what I heard in the room, although I felt in the room he had the ability to just have a presence. And you guys, don't get me wrong, I've seen a lot of speakers. I'm a student, right? I love watching someone who is masterful and in front of people, who's able to communicate in a way that makes you feel and move and inspire. But I'll tell you that Jay's one of the best at making you feel that he is just present and connected. And that was the first time I saw him in front of a live room, and I could feel that. And I've followed his podcast for years, and you kind of feel that in his podcast. But more so, I've had a chance to, again, have personal social interactions with him. And even when it was just him and I, you could feel that. When I introduced him to my kids and my wife and my mom at a social event, he took the time, and you could feel that. More so probably than anybody I've ever met. Like it's something that's a gift. It's something that you can feel. It's something that's different. So I asked, that was the question I asked him. I said, let me ask you a personal question. Like, how do you make people feel that type of presence or connection? Like, what's going through your mind or your heart to create that type of energy? Because it's different than anything I've ever seen. And his answer I want to share with you, because it's an answer I've never heard in all my personal growth and reading and podcasts. And he said something like, Blake, everybody in the world needs love. And you really don't know what everybody's going through. Everybody is in the middle of their own things, and you'll never know. And every person you meet, every conversation you have, every new relationship or existing relationship, you'll never know really what that person is in the middle of. You don't know their journey. You only know the small bits and pieces that they choose to share with you, but that's nobody's full story. And he said in more or less words, he said, Blake, I don't know what everybody's going through, but I know everybody needs and wants to feel loved. And then he said, so when I interact with people, I want them to know that if I'm even the only moment today that they feel love, right, then I did all that I can do. He said, my goal is just to be a vessel of love. And I thought that was just so powerful and so simple. That if in every moment, in every interaction, every communication, the intention that we bring in our mind and more so in our heart is just one of love, and approach our communication through that feeling of love, that interaction through a feeling of love. But like, what if that person is this, that, or the other? Well, then that person probably needs more love than anybody else because of what they're going through. And to be that vessel. And I just want to share that with you because that's something that's been on my mind ever since I asked the question. You gave me that answer, is just how can I just pause for a moment in the middle of fast-paced this, million things on the to-do list, so much going on, right? All the things, all the noise, life. What if we all just paused and asked ourselves how we can just be a vessel of love, even for a moment, even for an instance, in our interaction, our communication with others, our family, our friends, our social circles, our business interactions. Not only would that create a feeling of presence and connection, it'll deepen the relationships that you have with everybody, we all have together. Man, that energy would create a powerful shift that the world needs right now. So those are some takeaways. There's so many more, all around kind of heartfelt or heart-centered leadership, loving and leading ourselves, our family, and others, and a couple tools that we can use to love and lead ourselves, and an intention, right, a superpower that we can use when loving and leading our family and others. I'll show you the view from the top, but there's not much of a view today. It is cloudy and gray, but hey, it feels good today. Got my energy flowing, hibiscus lemonade in the bottle. And I hope today's conversation resonated with you and was as much value for you as it was for me. And if there's anybody that comes to your mind or your heart, please share. This is a gift. That's why we take the time to do this together, is not only for ourselves, but to share it with others. Feel free to tag them below or share it with your peer group. And again, drop by the podcast, leave some ratings and reviews, some great episodes there, and a great archive for a variety of topics that might help you with what you're going through. But my main hope and message for all of you guys today and for this week is, why don't we make a conscious effort just to lead with the heart, and a conscious effort to love and lead ourselves and our family and others, and a conscious effort just to pause and bring an intention of love to the communication and connection we have, and watch the shift that we can create in our own lives. Love you guys. Hope you have an amazing week. Thanks for our time together. Until the next time we talk.